Yes, indeed. It is that time of day again. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, whenever you are. Welcome to today's Kev Baker show. That's a blast from the past, that introduction there. Remember, I always used to bring the show in that way. And there's a reason I'm doing that tonight, because tonight's guest is somebody that we've all come to know and love over the years. Yes, years that we've been doing this show right here on the network. And I think she's one of the first regular guests that we ever did have on the show. So we'll kind of cast it back to the early days tonight, and we'll be bringing our very special guest on in just a moment. Don't forget, I'll be back tomorrow night with the last show of the week. Don Wiskin will be here in hour number 1. He'll be taking your calls, all related to health, Extendivite, all that stuff. So hour 1 tomorrow, the phone lines will be open. We always get a good response when Don comes on to the show. So then, folks, as you know, I'm still in the midst of the battle with YouTube. And if you haven't been noticing a lot of activity on my main channel, that's because I've been filling up the backup channel. So head on over to the Kev Baker Show 2 over on YouTube, and you'll be able to catch up with all the latest shows. I've been gaming this morning with Unirock. We were taking on some bad guys and PUBG. Going to be doing a lot more gaming content, but not just gaming. You know, when I'm sitting there playing, what a perfect opportunity for me not to show articles. That is obviously nearly illegal now here in the UK. And we can hang out with the chat. We can talk about the guests coming up. We can talk about shows that have been. We can chew over all the news of the day. And there's going to be a lot to come. So don't worry, folks. I'm about to bounce back from this little hiccup that we've had over on YouTube. And, of course, don't forget Anthony Patch. He, too, is under the same duplication penalisation that I'm under right now. And so many are as well. And we'll keep you up to date for that. And, of course, if you want to support us, we've got Patreon pages. You can head on over there. And Anthony's in the chat room tonight. And Anthony, you're going to be really, really falling off your chair during this broadcast, because there's going to be news that you're going to be absolutely kicking yourself. But I was sworn to secrecy for months, and I never, ever betray a friend's trust. But more of that on the way. So who have we got on tonight? I hear new listeners asking, why all this excitement from Kev? Why can I almost feel him smiling down the microphone? Well, that's because my girl from the Valley is back on tonight. We've got NanoGirl right here on the show for my enjoyment and, most importantly, your enjoyment. And for people out there, Nano is somebody who's worked in the technology industry for years. She's got a really keen eye for what's just around the corner in our reality. And so many times she's come on the show and she's talked about this company, that company, this technology, that technology. And, you know, maybe 2 months, 6 months, a year down the line, you sit back and you go, where have I heard this before? We've heard it from NanoGirl. So welcome back, Nano. And boy, oh boy, am I glad to have you tonight. You know, it's good to have friends around you when you've taken a bit of a kind of kick up the butt on YouTube, so to speak. So, Nano, I appreciate you making time to come here today to join back in the KBS fun.
Man, I every time you introduce me, I'm so humbled. Thank you so much. It's great to be back. It's always wonderful. It doesn't feel like it was that long. It was a while, so I'm not even going to think about how long. But I'm really glad to be back with you tonight, because I think we need to hang tight with our family and friends right now, especially with the craziness that's going on. I know you've been going through a pretty tough time. It just makes me crazy. So I want to start with a couple of personal stories, and I hope the first one really cheers you up, because I think this is reminiscent of what I feel like you do for so many people, and this is what you've dedicated your life to. This is how important I feel like your show is. You've given platforms to people like me that, as one lady asked me in a conference one time, what makes you think you could actually do a radio show? Because I wasn't an engineer.
Let me at them, Nano. Let me at them. Remember Scrappy too? That's what I would have been like if I'd been at that conference with you. You'd have been holding me back, so you would.
Well, it's this is from the heart. That's why this is so hard. This is from the heart. We do this for fun, for in our spare time. We do it because we think it's important, and we do it because we feel like we're being called to do it. And that's why we're here, you know. And yes, it's fun. I'm not going to martyr myself up here. That's not true. I love being here. I really do. But I also feel like it's important that we try to get some information out. We try to do the best we can to make sure we got a couple of sources, that we're not, you know, blowing spaghetti up someone's nose, and that, you know, we're getting some real stuff out there. But we also take a lot of heat. So the first story I want to tell is this is from a friend, and I've known this person for a very, very long time. I'm not going to mention their name, but I knew them for a very long time. And during the time of 9/11, I was awake, but what happened during that event, that he and I were job searching at the time, and during the time that we were job searching, I had the revelation of who actually did 9/11. And it threw me for a complete and total loop. And normally I don't share a lot of stuff, of this kind of stuff, with people who aren't, you know, interested. But because I was so freaked out, he had to hear about it. And I remember one breakfast, he said, you know, you really need to get a grip. And I really did. But so anyway, it's 9:30 last night, and he calls me up. And the first thing out of his mouth, he goes, hey, it's me. And I said, hi. And he goes, tell me about the telescope. And all of us listening, we all know what telescope we're all talking about, right? This is the one, the Observatory, what the heck happened? And I said, how did you hear about that? And he said, you know, over the years, I've really come to realize you had a point. You were telling me some things I need to listen to. And he said, I finally got it. And I'm like, oh, my God. And I said, why do you think you woke up over the telescope? It's really not anything. I mean, in the scale of 1 to 10, we've got hurricanes and fires and all the other insanity. And he said it was so stupid. It was so stupid, the lying. And I thought, you know, that has really been what's bothered me about this whole event, this observatory thing, the lying, the absolute in your face, we don't have to bother to tell you the truth anymore lying.
And you know, I think that's what's given birth, Nano, to so many different conspiracies that are out there. And you know, when we boil it down, and if you got to the truth, you know, it's probably nothing that fantastic, but you're right. It's because of the lying, and they lie about everything, that people are eventually kind of saying, what's this all about? What are you lying about? What are you covering up?
And, you know, so I got some quotes from the sheriff. His name is the Otero County Sheriff Benny House, and he's like one of your awesome sheriffs, right? Down to earth, you know, what the hell? And he said he reached out to the FBI repeatedly and was kept in the dark. He said, we asked and asked the FBI, and they will not tell us anything. And during this time, we became concerned that a suspect in the investigation potentially posed a threat to the safety of the local staff and residents. And so his whole comment, you know, to the press, I think it was yesterday, was, what the heck? You know, how do you expect me to do my job if you're not going to tell me anything, if you think you have some suspect running around, and, you know, what the heck are you talking about? Oh, that's right, you're not talking to me. And so my friend is kind of into all this kind of stuff. You know, he looks at the stars and everything. And I said, get on the train. It's got lots of room. Bring your friends. The crazy train is leaving the station, you know. And so I was thinking about you and thinking about all the people like us that we take a lot of heat. There's a lot of times we take a lot of heat for just being plain insane. But and I said to him, thank you for calling. Thank you for saying thank you. I said, because very few people ever call us back and say, you know what, you woke me up. But the bottom line here, Kev, is that's why you're here. And that's why people love you. And there's got to be a doorway. There's got to be a window. There's got to be a way that we keep going. I don't know what that is right now, but if enough of us look for it, I know we'll find it. I really do. I really believe that.
Exactly, Nano. And that's
Yeah.
why, I could have, I could easily have just put my tail between my legs when all this happened and says, oh, well, if I'm not going to get paid for this anymore, why even do it? It's because I do genuinely love doing this. I went for years on YouTube without a monetized channel. No incentive whatsoever, just because I want to get information out there. And you sometimes forget the amount of success stories that we probably have. I credit Alex Jones all the time for being a really big part in kind of shaking me out of my slumber, as I like to put it. But then, I have to kind of step back and say, I wonder how many kind of people I've done that to as well. And that's not an ego thing, but it's very special when you think about it. And that's why, I will find ways to work around this. Myself and Anthony, our two test cases here on the network, I was sharing with him today some alternatives. And, even if it means advertising, maybe a 30-second slot here and there, that's going to be the way it is. And it was convenient while it was Google, you could have the ad blocker on, skip that. And I know it'll get criticism if I'm doing a 30-second plug for something, but, it's something I love. And why not make an actual profession out of it? And for as much part as I can, if I can do that by going to companies other than listeners, Nano, I think that's a win-win all the way. But the main message is, right, and, the trolls will hate this, I'm not going away. Definitely not going away. And I might be down, but definitely never out. And there's one thing about Scotsmen, when we have been knocked down, we just get up and we're doubly determined when we do so. So I hope that resonates with everybody out there. And I certainly won't be going anywhere. In fact, look at me. That's me populating my backup channel now. So they've spawned 2 Kev Bakers. I wonder if I'm duplicating myself, Nano. I'll be back on the naughty step again.
Well, I mean, look at it. What did he say last night? He said it took me 17 years. He said, but I'm here.
Well, let me ask you about the observatory, right? Because people think, oh, Kev, the king of woo, he'll have some cool kind of theory here. And I must admit, when it comes to the kind of stuff going on around the sun, whether there's some kind of, Nibiru coming in, something like that, people like Ben Davidson, suspicious observers, other amateur astronomers out there, I think they too would be able to sound the alarm if it was something that they had picked up actually on one of their solar telescopes. Now, what has happened in reality, I don't know. And again, I'm just speculating. But what's your take, Nano? Do you think it is something that they've seen? Is it something more kind of terra firma? And again, is this all just spawned because of the lies they spin around a nothing story?
Yeah, the latter. So he and I got in the discussion, and he said, so the bottom line, what do you think? And I said, for me, nothing has resonated, and I said, unfortunately, when you're dealing in the dark, you have to deal with resonating. Oh, well, that kind of resonates with me, right? You try to scrap little snippets of information. But the thing that burns my biscuits about this story is the lying. I mean, the minute FBI shows up, to me, all I can think about is Lavoy Finicum, Waco. I mean, name that hit, right? And what they've done and who they represent. And so
I was expecting the locals to start posting pictures of Mulder and Scully somewhere, Nano.
Exactly. Seriously. I think the sheriff was smart. I'm sure it was tongue-in-cheek. He said all that. Hey, asshats. If you're going to make up a story, fine, I'll go along with it. And they never talked to him.
There was a TV show, and I'm trying to remember the name of it. I think it was called the 300. Oh no, I remember the name of it.
Is this the new one where they just came out of the water?
Yeah, they came out of the water. Right? Yeah, and
I don't remember the name of it. Yeah, it's a new one. Yeah.
Right, and then there's like it's not a government facility, it's not an observatory, but it's like a national park camp, and they kind of lying to the local sheriff about absolutely everything, despite the fact he was there. And I know, there's absolutely no reason for me to connect the two, Nano, but there's almost echoes of that TV show in this story. And I'm not saying for 1 minute there's a bunch of people turned up from the future. I'm not saying that at all. But it's just weird. There's almost like parallels.
No, I think that's a good point. In fact, there's a new show tomorrow about a plane full of people on TV, a new sci-fi show where they show up 5 years later.
You see, I was thinking, with MH370, we had a report out about that not long ago. I was wondering if this show would ever come out. Because, I mean, it is, you could kind of say, regard it as a bit insensitive. I'm not saying MH370 could turn up again any day now, but who honestly knows what happened to that?
Bingo. Exactly. I think it's a very interesting premise, and one of the characters, the actor that's in there was in Once Upon a Time. I really like him. He played the prince, so he's one of my favorite guys. I just love him. You know how you sometimes follow actors. You know how we are.
Absolutely.
I think it's called Manifest. The show is called Manifest. I think it starts next Monday on NBC. I made a note of it because if I can I just want to check it out. But that's the whole premise of that show. That
show I was talking about for people out there is called The Crossing. I just got that name. I couldn't remember the name of it now. Back to the real world, and this fits with what we're talking about.
This is the real world.
You see, it's just we forget we're on air, Nano. This is just the way we are. We forget there's like thousands of people listening, right?
Uh-oh. Yeah, we should be paying attention to some real information. Okay, sorry, we went right down the rabbit hole.
We've got Ben Davidson, who I mentioned, right? And in my opinion, it's just my opinion, I mean, I would rather go and listen to what he's got to say about what's happening on the sun, how that affects things down here on the planet, than any of these like recognized academics or your USGS. And talking USGS, somebody who I prefer to go to is Dutch Since. Now, we've been talking about my kind of life on YouTube tonight. Myself and Anthony have been sharing a number of emails about Dutch in recent days, and you two have been picking up on what's happening with Dutch Since. And Dutch Since is somebody that talks about earthquakes. In my opinion, the guy's a genius, okay? He might not be right all of the time. I tell you something, he is onto a brand new, almost field of science that they don't talk about in the public arena. And he's been very kind of vocal in recent times. I know he's had his problem with censorship, Nano. What's the latest with Dutch for listeners out there? Because I know a lot of the KBS listeners follow him, and rightly so.
Well, from what I saw, and I just grabbed a snippet from it today, that I heard from his voice that he is, now the YouTube's been removed, and the last couple of YouTubes, he's opening presents from people and cards, but he said he's submitting to authority. There's been a lot of intense trolling, and that they have a Mack truck and he has a scooter. He said no one's threatened him, no one's paying him. He's given up. He's gonna stop doing it around December 31st. So I would just say, mosey on over there, see what else you can find out. I was kind of putting things together for the show, but that's what it looked like. And when I went to look at his YouTube, he was opening presents from people.
Now, Nano,
like gifts and stuff.
I cover so many different topics, and like you were saying earlier on, you talk about some things that they're more dangerous than others. And I've got like a sliding scale. You go into the political stuff, you're obviously painting a target on your back. You go into the real dodgy crimes of the cabal, don't even want to mention them, but you get a target on your back. And then as you move further away backwards towards what I call the woo, I would say you give yourself almost a level of protection, because the further you get to the woo, you would think the less danger it is to people in the cabal, right? You're not exactly some big major threat to them. And when you talk about earthquakes and earth changes, on my scale, in my opinion, it's probably, higher up than the Sasquatch or something, but it doesn't strike me as something that you would get the men in black giving you hassle for. And I use the men in black just metaphorically. Obviously somebody somewhere, Dutch, is feeling some pressure, but for reporting on earth changes, what in earth's name? What's coming that they need to get rid of people like Dutch Since?
Well, that's a very interesting question. And, if you go back to the observatory, did they see something regarding weather? not aliens and not any of that stuff, but they did. Was there some kind of picture that was so damning, quote unquote, that they had to just, log off? Like, oh God, we got to shut down here. I don't know.
Now, I know Dabu, he covered a kind of strange picture the other day, and it's got like all of these waves kind of across the planet, like almost like. Now, I can tell you, right?
He's not the only one talking about that. Yeah.
Well, I can say, being a veteran, being a long timer at this, and having had Daza the cameraman on the show, that's actually a known anomaly in some of the software that they use. Now, you could go one further and say, well, they put that in just to kind of cover up for what might be caught on camera. But what Daza does is he goes to the actual manuals for the actual satellites, the software that's on them, and there are known glitches and known things that go wrong. And I've seen this one turning up before, Nano, and that's the only reason I bring that one up, because, people like Dutch and people like Ben Davidson, they tend to stick more to the kind of science that they can confirm, more than sensationalizing things. And again, you'll see, no criticism to Dabu, but you'll see those videos, the likes of BP, he'll cover that as well, and that'll be left up. You won't see any pressure put on these guys. And again, no criticism of them, but whatever Dutch is doing, and I imagine Ben, suspicious observers, he must be on their radar as well, if there is something that they're trying to cover up.
Well, let me ask you a question then. Do you think all of this weather is controlled by the players, or do you think they're making hay with things that we're going through? In other words, they're pushing it to a more severe level.
That's a good question. And I think, even if they're not directly influencing one weather front or another, I think at this point, because there's been that much manipulation, Nano, I think all weather's artificial, if that makes sense. None of it's even natural anymore. All of it's a byproduct of other geoengineering products around the planet, because we know that the weather systems, they're all connected. So if you affect something in one part of the world, it's a domino effect. And we see the spraying going on all the time for various different programs and projects. So artificial weather, I'd say the majority of our weather, if not all of it, it's man-made. It's artificial at this point.
Well,
that's just my opinion. The
jury's out. I don't, I stick to tech a lot because I can kind of relate to that, and I can kind of find more factual information for me. And I don't want to come on your show and say stuff I don't know. So I don't know, but I have heard. I listen to lots of different people give their opinion about what's going on, and I find it all really interesting.
Well, we share a love of that least talked about intelligence kind of research agency, IARPA.
Are we talking about webbots? No.
no, not tonight. No, but IARPA. They've got
IARPA, yeah, our good friends at IARPA, yes.
They've got a program that's really relevant to this right now, and I've been taking a closer look at them. And I'm just digging up this just now because, they've got something that they call HFGEO. And that's not Chris Geo, folks. It's HFGEO is an IARPA program, and it deals with communication systems, ionosphere, antennas, geolocation, electromagnetics, and radio frequency. Now, that one there, Nano, ionosphere, that kind of gets the mind thinking about things like HARP. But only, I kind of look at HARP as almost being like old technology. You've got all these kind of ground bases. You've got all of these antennas on the back of ships at seas as well. So even without us playing with the weather, when we're like manipulating the ionosphere just for even to use it as an antenna, as I know for a fact they used to do in the British Army because I got taught about it, then that in itself must have some knock-on effect on the weather underneath that, just in my opinion anyway. So again, all of this, not all of it perhaps, that's a bit too much of a broad statement, but most of our weather I think it's been jacked to the point now where we're seeing weird summers in Europe. We're seeing weird weather all over the planet.
No, I agree. That
took us right up to the break. It was almost like a time trap. Trust me, folks. I back on the other side with NanoGirl.
You're listening to the Truth Frequency Radio Network.
No hate, no hype, no fear.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Kev Baker, and I'm coming to you from a very, very windy Glasgow, Scotland tonight. And my guest is NanoGirl. And, just the other day I was speaking to my mum. She says, there's a big storm on the way. I says, oh, come on, get out of here. You know what us British are like. We're watching all of this storms unfolding in America, and we're feeling left out. So the media are going to hype just a bit of wind and a bit of rain. Oh, man, it's been really, really bad over here today. One woman actually lost her life. Her caravan was blown clean off a cliff somewhere in Scotland. So, it's been a really, really dangerous kind of storm over here. But myself and Anne, we went out in this earlier on today. And I tell you what, man, wow. I was never the biggest guy anyway. When I done boxing in the army, they couldn't find anyone small enough or light enough to fight with me. And I was muscly then. So now I'm even lighter. And I tell you what, I could have done with an anchor out there today because that was absolutely wild. So if you're in Scotland, and I hope you're in the house, you're all nice and safe and warm and listening to the storm outside because really, really wild. Storm Alley is blowing its way through. So then, back to NanoGirl. Yes, Nano, I almost got blown away today, but I made sure I hung on to the nearest, static object because I couldn't miss my Nano night. We just couldn't be doing that.
No, we gotta. I gotta show up every once in a while and just say hi and let you know that not every single person that lives here is crazy. Well, crazy, but not crazy. Cray. Yeah.
Are they amazeballs, cray?
Cray.
But listen, we were talking geoengineering before the break.
Yes.
I've had a lot of guests on here, namely in recent times we've had Dane Wigington, Ilana Freeland, Matt Landman, all of them talking about various kind of aspects of geoengineering and this stuff. But you mentioned a new name to me and a documentary that you had seen recently. And I really liked what you had to say about this. So tell us more about what you've seen, Nano.
Well, actually, it was a show with Emily Moyer and Randy Moggins, and that's Off Planet Radio, which I put the link into the for you to put in the chat. So I think we did it last week, and it was called Total Weather Command and Control HR1, and their guest was Sean Gautreaux. Sean is famous for that picture with the lightning a lightning strike on the Twin Towers. So he's very adept at photography. So he has a site, and for about a year or so, he started taking pictures of the clouds. He noticed that the clouds were changing, and I guess he's always taken pictures. He loves clouds, and he started taking them around in the 90s, the mid-90s, which is when all this weather stuff really started taking off, the chemtrails and all of it. And he has about 19 10-minute YouTubes going over his process of looking at the fact that he feels there's cloaked planes in this weather warfare game, that's what we're seeing. So when we see that stuff in the clouds, or we think we see a big kind of mothership because of the drone, it's the Aurora series, when the ones that went over Las Vegas, it's really interesting. So he goes through a whole process of his discovery, like how he started seeing it, what they do in the clouds, how they produce some of the chemtrails and what's happening, and how they interact with each other in the clouds. And here's the reason it spoke to me is because I have seen a lot of things that I could not explain. I could not explain the grid lines that I saw with my sunglasses. I could not explain the glitches in the matrix, where the matrix, goes on and off, like you turned your TV on and off real quick, right? just all of the weird anomalies and that being that showed up at my job that was in that different dimension, because they kind of talked a lot about that. So Emily feels pretty strongly, as I think Randy Moggins does, that we're pretty much in a computer simulation at this point. And you and I were talking a little bit before the show, like, how much do we think we're in one? How much do we think isn't, I think the weather, like you were saying before the break, it looks like they've got a pretty good grip on that for them, not for us, not in our favor, but that they've got a pretty good grip on that. And, we've got Google, and we've got some of these bigger computer companies doing algorithms, and they're starting to kind of control us. And I don't think we're even aware of the subtleties. They're keeping track of all our phone calls and everything we do, where we shop, what we do with our credit cards. So in some ways, we're also being manipulated. And then you've got China with that social software where you're going to have great behavior. You can't get on the train. So I think there's different aspects of the simulation. Like if this was a game, different applications are running or different pieces of the software are running. But I don't think they have it fully on yet, at least not to my reality anyway. I mean, I could be in the Petri dish in the Matrix and just this feels like I'm human. But for me, I've struggled trying to understand what people meant by that and what I thought I was seeing and what other people said they were seeing in the clouds. And I felt like watching Sean's YouTubes was very helpful. I think, what's the name of his show? Hold on just a second.
Well, just why you find that, this whole simulation theory, a lot of people think it's kind of a new thing ever since we had Elon Musk talking about it a few years ago. But there's actually nothing new to it, Nano. I mean, if you look into it, I think it was round about maybe the first half of the 1900s that people started putting forward this something we could call simulation theory. So, it's definitely nothing new. And, like you say there, we've got a handle on the weather and things. And if I think about it this way, as one interpretation of it is, and I think this is the way Musk put it, he said at some point, if you're able to recreate a simulation that is indistinguishable from what we've got here today, then you have to stand back and ask the question, are we ourselves in a simulation? And I would say now, no matter what we're in, we're certainly at the point where we can create something that is indistinguishable from what is reality all around us. Like you say there, I mean, we've got a handle on the weather. We can create artificial weather. We can create artificial food. We can create artificial life. We can basically create the artificial, the mimic for everything that's real here, right down to the whole synthetics and stuff, the West world coming to life, Nano, all that kind of thing. And then you start looking at the actual simulations that we can run now. And that takes us to that sentient world simulation where all of us, 7 billion of us, are all nodes in a real-time simulation running off all the data that's coming from us on a minute-by-minute basis. And everything's data, even our reality all around us. And I often compare our reality to a first-person shooter game. I've been talking in recent days about PUBG, and that's Players Battleground, or, something like that. Anyway, I can't remember the full name of it. It's PUBG, we call it. But that's basically you're running along. And as you're running along, what you see in front of you, that's all rendered. It looks very real. You're running into it. It's a virtual world. And what's to your left and to your right and to your rear, it's all there. It's all data. It's just waiting for you to observe it, isn't it? And then you think of yourself standing alone in a field, and you can almost draw parallels between the game and where you are as well, because you know that all of the reality around you is there. You might not be able to see what's behind you. You might not be able to see what's just out of your periphery to the left or the right. But just like the game, when you turn around and observe it, that data that's there all the time anyway, just like the game, you render it into reality. And for me, I've often said that the simulation, it fits best for me. But that doesn't mean that I literally mean we're on some kind of motherboard or we're in some virtual world. I think it's just like it's the closest thing that we can hook onto, that we can relate to, that explains a lot of the science and the physics that tell us about the universe around us. It makes sense. The math fits. Everything seems to fit, along with these glitches you talk about as well, Nano. You would expect if you run a simulation long enough, and especially now, because never at any point, and let's say we are in a simulation, never have we been producing the amount of data that we've been producing in recent years. And all of that has to take its toll, with everything else that's running in this alleged or, we're speculating could be a simulation. And I wonder if that's what's causing things to break down.
Well, I guess my question is, I'm listening and I don't have a good answer for your question, but my question is, why do I need the neural link? If I'm already in the game and I'm already at the effect of it, and I'm just borrowing the avatar, I'm waking up in my avatar, just like that movie, then I don't need the neural link. I don't need that.
That's more of a simulation within the simulation, though. Because the neural link will hook you into a virtual world it's still a virtual world within this simulation, isn't it? So I see what you're saying, absolutely. But I think that kind of scenario, I think that's going inwards. We're going into another simulation that will have to have some kind of technology that will sync up with that central hub, the AI god or whatever they roll out in the middle. However Musk and the rest of them want to sell it to us, Nano. But yeah, I do see what you're saying. I think that hooks us more into this reality, this matrix that we're already living in, when they can physically kind of hook us in through our minds.
And this is where, if we go back to what you're dealing with the Google and the YouTube, I think this is all a part of all that. And we have to, when I struggle with every day, and I ask myself the question every single day, are you thinking differently? Are you seeing differently? Are you trying to walk your way out of everything you've done the way you've always done it? I had this dream the other night, and it was a gravestone. And it was X marks the spot, X marks the spot, X marks the spot. It was a creepy dream, right? It was very creepy. Because I thought, is this foretelling me? But, thinking about it, it was the death of something I was doing. And it's time now to take a look at, as I move forward, am I being effective? Am I asking better questions? Like, for instance, the clock and time. I've been thinking about clocks and watches. A clock and a watch is really a mechanical, synchronized mechanism. You and I agree that when the synchronized mechanical mechanism does a certain thing, it's on the big 12 and the 2 over here and whatever it is over in your neck of the woods, I'm going to dial the phone. I'm going to say, I'm here, call me, right? But that's not really time. And I think that part of what's going to happen as we roll forward, we're going to understand time much better. But I think we have to start asking different questions. And so maybe it's the time for the big reveal. Can I share the big reveal? So the big reveal is I got to actually interview at D-Wave. They had an opening for what I do, and I couldn't believe it. And I threw a resume their way, and they called me and said, come on in for an interview. And it was so amazing to interview there, guys. I did not get the job, unfortunately, but it was such a thrill to be there because as I interviewed, we used words like science fiction and
Come on, Nano, come on. Share with the audience who prepped you for the interview, who gave you a crash course in quantum to get you all ready for this.
The Kev Baker. My Kev Baker, my buddy, the Kev Baker. He helped me prep for the interview. And so the two big things I have to share with everyone, I didn't see any darkness running around. Everybody there was pretty nice. And I got to interview with Eric in person for an hour, which was amazing. Such an amazing. It took me the first 30 minutes. I couldn't stop seeing him through the YouTube. It's like, oh my God, this is Eric. Oh my God, this is Eric. And he's asking me questions. I'm thinking, think. But just being there, just thinking outside the box and thinking about the reality of what they're creating, it was so amazing. And the cutest part of the interview with Eric is he's very well aware about his friends send him all the articles about, Satan and the darkness and all this kind of stuff. And so he knows all about it. And I said to him, oh, you know about those articles? He goes, yes. But he was very, very nice, by the way. So
did he have his
anyway,
I love the Kev Baker show t-shirt on? Nano, this is massive. And, when you told me you were going to speak to Eric Ladzinski, I was really blown away because although most of the time myself and Mr. Patch, are you hearing this? Most of the time we concentrate on Geordie for obvious reasons. He sets himself up. But I've always said, when it comes to the D-Wave, in my opinion, Eric is the genius. He's the brains behind it. He was the one that's seen it in, the kind of macro scale and thought, I can do this. I can build the world's first and most powerful quantum computer. Not only that, he went and done it.
Yeah. Yeah, he's absolutely as amazing as you can imagine in person. He is really amazing. He's, he'll ask you a question and you start talking and he'll just focus on something you say and he'll say, okay, so he's so with you. And you just get this sense of this amazing, brilliant person. And just to be able to talk to him for an hour is because he was kind of a hero of mine, to be honest with you guys.
I'm envious, Nano. I would imagine Eric to you is Elon to me. And imagine the synchronicity just that you get in the interview there. But, if it had panned out and you had got the job there, I'd have been, it would have been just too weird. It would have been like, the universe having a kind of either a pat on the back to all of us for covering all of this stuff, or just weird, just an entanglement, right?
Yeah, I felt, there was a lot of mixed feelings. But how do I say this? When I was interviewing there and when I showed up there, all I could see was an open world. Like somebody opened the whole side of the universe and said, look at this. And I felt nothing but good. It felt nothing but positive. It felt nothing but hopeful. And that's how I felt when I was there. I just felt hopeful. Everybody was super nice. Everyone I interviewed with, it was such a thrill to be there. I interviewed with 9 people. So I got to know probably a good portion of the team. But they were so nice.
I could go really woo and say, was it like the Council of 9? I'm only joking. No.
Actually, no. They're very, they're scientists. They're engineer, type scientist people. No, they're just
I'm proud of you, sis. I really am. I'm proud of you.
Thanks.
Not only for even them, looking at your resume, you got invited in there, and I imagine thousands applied for that. So that in itself is high praise. But getting to speak to somebody that you admire so much, that's a beautiful thing, Nano, and nobody can take that away, right?
No, it was very inspirational. And again, that's why I feel like I realize, it's kind of like, I can't remember what movie it was, but there's a scene where the good guys are fighting the bad guys. And one of the good guys says to the other good guy, and they're fighting, and it looks like they're losing. He goes, how are we doing? And the other guy goes, oh, our usual, huh? We're losing. And it feels like that at the moment. It feels like we're losing. It feels like they have a grip on us, and they don't.
So when you got in the elevator, did it like have all the floors numbered, and then like?
No, they don't have an elevator.
Below the basement, it said like Geordie's lair.
No, because you got to remember that the machines are in Canada. They're not in Palo Alto.
Oh.
So I interviewed Eric is actually, he goes to 3 different sites in America. He travels all the time.
Yeah, he goes through the Stargate that's under the basement, Nano.
See, but I didn't see a basement. I mean, really, there could have been a background, but I didn't see a machine there. And that would have been very cool. But
myself and Anthony have always said, Nano, all of the kind of negative side of D-Wave aside, we've nothing but respect for the people behind that technology, because as people that are into science, as people that are into that, I mean, how can you not take your hat off to the people who have got this thing working? I mean, Turing imagined about this kind of machine way, way back in the day. And now here they are. They've actually got a quantum machine. And you compare it to the other ones out there, and it's like putting a heavyweight boxer in with me. It's not even a fair fight, Nano. So despite everything that myself and Tony say about these companies, we would love, we'd have loved for you to got that job, and we would happily bring these people on the show so they could dispel some of the stuff that's out there, right? It's like you started the show off with about the lying, and it's not to say that Geordie lies, but I think a lot of the conspiracy, is born from what he said in the first place.
Well, that's the whole thing, is it all gets exaggerated. And how Eric sees himself, as brilliant as he is, he feels his gift is to explain quantum to regular people. That's his gift. He can translate that technology and that complexity to the rest of us so we understand it. And I thought, wow. I mean, talk about humbling. I mean, you know what I mean? He's a rock climber, he surfs. He's just your regular brilliant guy.
It's like I said to you, wasn't it, when you said it was going to be Eric? I said, he's your genius. He's not your kind of occult guy. He's the guy that's going to tell you exactly all the good stuff. And you were even saying he just loves the quantum, right? He's like Quantum Eric.
And guess what he brings up all the time? Schrodinger's cat.
You see, myself and Eric share that cat both at the same time. There you go. Boom, boom.
I figured you guys are entangled at least that much.
But I mean, you kind of crammed in a lot of quantum mechanics in the build-up, the process to that interview. And was that really more eye-opening, Nano? Now that you've really taken a deep dive into it and really studied it?
Yes, it made it much more. It made it. I finally was able to understand it much better, because I really had to, dive in, and I couldn't go into the interview with not getting it right. So yeah, and it's been very helpful, because I think before we had qubits and we had stuff flying all over the place, and I had no idea what they were talking about, and freezing cold chips. One famous scientist said, if one, I can't remember if it was Feynman or somebody like that, but he said, if you go and look at quantum mechanics and it doesn't confuse you, you haven't read it right. So, because it's a really, really weird world, and that's why I just love it so much. And it plays such a part in all of the technology going on, and a lot of it in Silicon Valley today, Nano. Well, think about where we're headed. That's where we're headed. I mean, there's a number of companies out there doing this now. This is no longer some kind of small event. This is huge. America is putting in like $1.2 billion to educating scientists in quantum. So this is no longer sci-fi. And I think a part of that is going to be the reality, the realization of the rest of the things, like dark matter and like time, like space, what it really is, how it's affecting us. And I'm really hoping that will give us a different kind of freedom that we don't experience right now, a different kind of intelligence and a different kind of, like I said, freedom. That's how I felt when I was there. I thought, oh my God, maybe this would be the door to help people walk away from this crippling, manacles that they have all over us, where they want to put us in these cages.
And
that's just not going to happen.
And we were talking on Friday. Anthony done a really important show. I can't speak to the importance of this show because it was basically a timeline and the military origins of Google and everything that Google's become today. And as with a lot of the companies, and again, this isn't to speak bad of D-Wave in any way, because most of the companies, most of the startups, anything over in Silicon Valley, despite the US government and things on the face of it saying we need to be on the, playing catch up in the world of quantum and AI and all this stuff, they forget and they neglect to tell us or remind us that most of these companies, their seed money, and 10 million specifically when it comes to D-Wave, came from the likes of In-Q-Tel and DARPA. So a lot of the companies that are already on the forefront of all of these things, we see how the military-industrial complex, they wrap their tentacles around it very, very early. And that's how they've got such a grip on things. But that doesn't mean that they're winning, folks, because thanks to shows like this, thanks to people like Nano, thanks to all of you out there, we can try and figure out as best we can what's going on and then circumvent it. And we'll be back on the other side with my good friend NanoGirl, the D-Wave girl. I'd have loved to have called you D-Waves Nano. Maybe one day soon. I'm telling you, my gut still says there's something in the ether. Maybe something in the other dimension on the other side of the break. Join us when we come back for hour number 2. And don't forget, my good friend Lucky and Dr. Brooks Agnew will be on right after KBS. Don't go anywhere. Right here on TFRlive.com.
Tuned into the truth frequency.
We are TFR.
Can't believe this, but it's hour number 2 already. And I want to give a big shout out to Down Under in Australia. Brett in the chat room, Ozzy Anzac. Always love it when I see you in the chat, brother. And of course, if anyone out there wants to join all of the great people in the chat, and there's too many to mention because NanoGirl is here with me tonight, you too can hang out in the Wookiee Cave. All you need to do is head on over to tfrlive.com/chat. It's all free. You can get in there. And then on top of the show and the information you hear from myself, NanoGirl, and all the other hosts on the network here, you get all of the great people in chat with all of their equally brilliant ideas. And you'll be surprised how many times something in the chat can spawn conversation and even full shows. So please check us out. And during the break, I was kind of twisting Nano's arm. Come on, Nano, you have to get me Big Easy Eric on the show. I want to kind of talk about joint custody of Schrodinger's cat with him.
He loves Schrodinger's cat. I think he has, I didn't see it, but I think he mentioned he has T-shirts or something. And he serves, like I said, he serves, and he is a rock climber. So I don't know. I thought, oh my God, cool. I feel like I'm interviewing Kev Baker.
He's kind of cool. He always came across to me as kind of cool, even when you see him
Very
at the
cool.
the tech conferences. There's none of the kind of, the blasé and the kind of showmanship that you see from Geordie. Totally different character. And if I had to pick one of the two to go for a nice cup of coffee with, it would definitely be Easy Eric.
The thing that was so hard to get grounded is because he's just like his YouTubes. He's just like that. He is who he is wherever he goes. So he doesn't put on airs, like you said. That's who he is. And it's so weird when you see somebody like probably on a TV show and a movie, and you get used to seeing them a certain way, and then you meet them or you're interviewing them at their company, and you have to pay attention to the questions they're asking you. And, it was just a lot. Finally after 30 minutes, I got grounded, but I kept screaming at myself in my head, stop it! It was really hard to get grounded.
I'm very proud of you. Very, very proud of you. And it might not be D-Wave. And I would say to Easy Eric, if you're listening to this, man, you lost out. You definitely lost out.
Oh.
But absolutely, their loss is our gain tonight, Nano. So what else have you got for the audience here?
Well, everyone knows that Kev loves robots. And this whole show, obviously, you guys could see we're not taking it super serious tonight. So it was mostly to cheer you up tonight. So I found this YouTube today. In fact, I think I was the first person to listen to it. And it's hilarious, no, without trying to be. So if you could play, the name of it is Will Robots Replace Human Workforce? And I think if we do the first minute and a half, that kind of captures the gist of it. And this is exactly what drives Kev crazy.
And, just because I'm in the EU, if I'm not here after a couple of minutes of playing this, you know that the copyright Nazis have come flying through my window, that they've arrested me for daring to play somebody else's audio that they call an educational channel. So bear in mind, if I'm not here at the end of this clip, we know that I've been deleted, I've been unpersoned for duplication. But I'm keen to... Can
we just say for educational purposes? This is for educational purposes only.
There we go. Yeah, absolutely. When it comes to robots, we need to learn more about these things. So I'm really keen to find out what you've got for us, Nano. Here we go. Will robots replace the human workforce? Okay, we'll pause it there, Nano, because I think I can hear the Black Hawk helicopter circle in the house. They've almost they've triangulated my position. So, no, this is exactly the kind of thing I talk about, isn't it? Robots replacing people in the workplace and things.
Yes.
In recent times, I've really had an eye-opener looking at that other company. And unfortunately, it is a subsidiary of D-Wave and it's Sanctuary. And it's not Geordie Rose that creeps me out about that place. It's Dr. Suzanne Gildert. And there's almost like two levels of robots now for me. You get the nuts and bolts ones, the ones that we see in the factory in this video. And the ones that are kind of anthropomorphized in this video, Nano, let me say, they are very creepy robots, right? They're all shiny and plastic looking. But then you move into this whole kind of Sophia and then getting closer to the biological synthetic robots that they're not here right now, but they're certainly around the corner.
Well, I have mixed feelings. So I would agree with you that some of the, and I'm not going to mention any names, some of the robots to me are very creepy. And I never cross the line to the sex robots. I hate those things. That's
Same here, Nano. Same here. I think that's a very dangerous road.
Yeah, psychologically and every other way.
Yes.
And I also feel like nobody has privacy. If you have not been paying attention to Stormy Daniels and the president, you're missing out on what's coming with the bots, with the sex bots or whatever those things are. Do you actually think that if you use those things, they're not going to be filming? And if you ever decide to run for office, that they're not going to play that stuff? I don't think there's anything that isn't filming and recording and whatever, right? I mean, I don't. I think that we have absolutely no privacy, so I think people need to be very cognizant of that.
I agree with that, Nano. Especially over here in the UK, you're very aware of some of the overt CCTV and cameras that are everywhere. But like you say, I think at this point, it's not paranoid. From our televisions, from our monitors to our smartphones, they've got eyes and ears on us everywhere, every minute of the day.
Yeah. But this was so well said, because this is the antithesis of everything that you and I say together about robots. Yeah, I mean,
there's a place for a robot, right? I don't like think of the job a plumber does. It's a really invaluable job, but think of what he's got to do. Think of, the places he's got to unblock. Come on, let's get some machine that can do that. That's certainly all for that. But then where do the plumbers go? So I can see a role for the robots, but this is just more of the times that are changing, Nano, isn't it?
Well, that was why I wanted to bring this up, is because I saw a report today, and the report is from the World Economic Forum, which I guess you could trust that or not.
Oh,
but they said that
they are uber up there, Nano. They're up there with the Bilderbergers for me.
I know. But so according to them, 75 million jobs globally will be displaced by robots by 2022. But new jobs, 133 million new ones will be created. And the quote from the article was a net positive. Now, they also talk about the fact that we're all going to have to get trained. Like, obviously we're going to have to train quantum scientists and things like that, right? So we're going to have to all kind of get trained in new, like, in other words, being the people that fix the robots, or being the people that are the manager of the robots, or like you said, maybe the plumber, maybe the robot comes in and helps the plumber, but you still need a plumber. But so you have to learn how to manage the robot. I actually got a flyer from Zoom Pizza. Zoom Pizza is the one that, that the robots are baking the pizza and they just do delivery. Well, somebody still has to drive that truck. Somebody still has to make sure those robots work. So we're not there yet where we're all completely replaced, but I agree with you. But I'm just kind of watching some of the propaganda and kind of keeping track of, what things are kind of popping up first.
The reason I kind of maybe look more towards that scenario, Nano, and it's maybe because it fits more with what I envisage a new world order, a real heinous version of it to look like, where we are all dependent on the state. We are all kind of equal, we're all on that universal kind of income. And one way that fits for me that could happen would be the robots taking the jobs. Now, that doesn't mean to say that will happen, but the curve that we're on, I struggle to see maybe 20 years out where most things aren't automated at that point. It would almost take an incredible plateau in the technology for that not to happen. And it's not defeatist. Us humans are brilliant. We're better than we think, and we will improvise, we'll adapt, we'll overcome. And it might be, a set us free moment, Nano. We should be having more time to ourselves, more quality time. Not at the behest of a government, but, it could be the best thing that happens. It might be that we're looking at it the wrong way.
Well, I think that's why we have to continue to be the people who influence it and pay attention to how we're being influenced. It's like, looking at the meme today, like one of the things that I caught was one of the senators from Hawaii got on the bandwagon on Kavanaugh, and she's, all huffy puffy and said that, the woman should have her day, the one that accused him of sexual harassment, the Me Too lady. And she said, what was her quote? I'm trying to look for my quote from her. Something about it's about time men did what they were supposed to do and just shut up and, did the right thing for a change. And that goes right along with Faith Popcorn and her premise of what's happening with our guys, right? Guys are going to be having male and female floors. I saw an article this weekend about guys going to, these workshop things where it's all guys.
But along these lines, I was kind of encouraged recently because we had Serena Williams, I think it was Serena, and she had that real big hissy fit in the final of the tennis. And she accused the umpire of being sexist, despite the fact, he was umpiring two ladies. And I like tennis. From what I could see and from what I could make out, she deserved the kind of punishments that she took on board. She had done wrong. And her press conference, it was all about she standing up for women. And I was actually fearful for this umpire. I thought he would end up being one of the victims of these witch hunts by the social justice warriors. But it's really encouraging. And, I don't really enter this kind of arena often, but to see that umpire actually got the backing of his fellow umpires, both men and women, and people, finally coming out and saying, well, this isn't really a sexism case at all. So maybe we're starting to see a bit of a sea change there. That's encouraging, Nano, because, don't get me wrong, I'm not for equal rights. It's not that I'm against equal rights, but there's a really kind of militant arm to the feminist movement right now, and it's kind of crazy, some of the stuff that goes on. And that's no offense to women. And I'm sure, all you women listening tonight, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. Some of the stuff you see, it's just ridiculous. It really is.
Well, I actually took umbrage to what she said. I thought, how could you possibly make a statement like that? Just shut up and step up. Do the right thing for a change. It's like, so sweetheart, Senator Mazie, Hirano, why would you say something that inflammatory? How sexist, how judgmental that is. Because I don't see guys like that at all. I also think that this is a way to kick Kavanaugh off of the running. They don't want him there. To me, it's a whole setup. So, she can balk and scream and yell, but this is not the right time to bring this up. And also dividing us like this. So for one of the first times, I'm like, you know what, I'm going to side with Kavanaugh, and I'm not even a big fan of his at all, but shame on you.
I don't know much.
I wouldn't like that if some senator from some state said, you women just shut up. Can you imagine that? If some male senator said, just shut up. He's talking to the women. Just shut up, step up, and do the right thing for a change. How do you think we would react? Let's all think about that for 2 seconds.
I've not looked into this case in any depth at all. But you know what gets me, and it's telling of today's times that we live in, and the fact that woman could come out and say that is the fact that, anytime anything like this comes up, it's not about even the victim anymore. It's just a political kind of football. It's out there for one side or the other to use for brownie points and to knock the other side down and to politicize something like this. And again, I've not looked at the case, so I don't know if there's anything there or not. But, this is going back a long, long time. And it just feels to me like it's for all the wrong reasons, really.
That's how I feel. And so I've stayed away from it. And once I saw it, I thought, I'm sorry, I'm not even going to. And most of the time I avoid all this stuff. I just think, okay, I'm not.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't even do that. But speaking about boring things to do at work, the creator, so I've kind of went over some, high-tech highlights of what's going on right now just to kind of see where we are. So the creator of Google's self-driving car project is now working to automate boring office functions from Cresta AI. So what he's working on is like for the customer service to have like sort of an AI response to customer service. Kind of interesting, isn't it? Kind of handle some of that stuff that people don't like doing.
Well, I tell you, it takes me back to an interview I seen a number of years ago now. It was on Bloomberg. I found it randomly, but it's one of those videos that, it was on autoplay. I never intended to look into anything like that. But it was some financial expert, and they were talking about how, businesses, no matter how big or small, if they didn't find a way of incorporating AI into their business model somehow, Nano, then these companies would be left behind in the very near future. And it's amazing how you see many different uses of the AI and how it is being used in business and industry and everything else. And look at space recently. We had that 72 signals previously undetected by human eyes at the SETI Institute. And isn't this what we say about AI all the time? It's absolutely brilliant at poring over data, and it finds that there's signals coming from space that are all mysterious and the cool kind of stuff we like to talk about. So there's the kind of really positive and the exciting side of AI when it comes to entering the workplace and doing the jobs that, some humans, it's just things we can't do.
And to add to that, San Francisco has opened up the first cashier-less store. It's called Standard Market. And you download an app and you can go into the 1,900 square foot space, grab items, and simply leave, just like that commercial.
Now, doesn't Amazon have something like that in Seattle as well, Nano?
Yes, they do. Funny you should mention that. Yes, Amazon is called Go Market. And this one is, of course, by Google, Standard Market.
I think that's the way it's going to go. And even, the self-service kind of bits at your Walmart you've got over there. Over here, we've got the Tesco's and Morrison's and Asda. But, where you go to the scanners yourself, I think that's almost like a tiptoe getting us ready for the fact that one day in the future, it's all going to be automated. We're just going to be in there ourselves, be it an app, be it some other system. That's the way it's going, right?
Yes, I think so, and you won't even have to use your phone. It's just like that commercial. Remember the commercial where the guy went in with the dark coat and it's the middle of the night and he picks up a bunch of stuff and walks out of the store? It's about 4 or 5 years old, but yeah.
This makes me think back to a conversation again I had after a show just the other night with my mum. We were talking about this kind of thing, Nano, and my stepdad, it's not that he's a Luddite, he's not like anti-technology or anything, but he's just from that kind of old school generation, and he doesn't have a new smartphone or anything like this with the apps. And do you think, that'll be the last generation before we see this full automation? Because there are still people out there who aren't plugged in. They've decided, the older generation particularly, that it's not for them. So with the new kids coming up through school, you see toddlers at 2 years old able to navigate about tablets, rightly or wrongly. It's almost as if they're born with the skill to do it. Do you think we're a generation or so away from all of this really kind of rolling out big time?
I think it's here. I think they're not going to question a whole lot of stuff. Everything's going to be very different for them. It already is. There's things that they're going to be able to do. And it's the same thing with, my son, right? He could do things I never thought of doing because it didn't bother him. Or you, right? From your parents. Like, things that you put your computer on your table and, you have a smartphone and you do this, that, and the other thing. And then your son, he's doing all these things that you didn't think of doing. And I look at my 3-year-old grandson, and he can figure out his dad's phone, and they all can. If you put a bunch of little kids in grocery carts that the parents are pushing around, and they get to play with the phones to keep them quiet,
I think
they're having a ball, and they're
weird.
Like 2 or 3.
This sounds weird, but in amongst that, air quotes here, I know you can't see me, but in amongst that junk DNA, I think there's a lot of kind of genetic memories that are transferred as well, that are handed down. And I wonder if that's why you get children. It's almost scary, Nano. They pick it up and they don't need to be shown. Okay, they're just battering through the menus, but they know right away what to do. Yeah. The thumbs are there, they hold it right. And that, for me, is really interesting. I mean, are we as a species now, is that actually encoded into our DNA? And we talk about the neural lace and things, and we've already got a symbiotic relationship with technology if we're passing that information down genetically.
See, that's why we don't need it. That's my big bone of contention with the Musketeer. It really makes me mad because I have felt long before cell phones and computers and things like that, we're all connected anyway. It is like that Avatar movie. You know how they were all connected and they all knew things, because spiritually and, like you said, entangled, we were all entangled. So we all knew things. We were all relying more on our gut feelings. And so everything was communicated anyway. And if you are tuned in to what's going on and your spidey sense, it isn't easy for everyone to lie to you. They're not going to get away with it because we're all connected anyway. And so this neural link thing to me is going to disrupt that. That's my big beef with that guy. It's like, why would you ask us to do that? So I went on last night on site. I just on Google. I wanted to see it because he made a comment on the Rogan show that we're going to see something impressive in a short time, right? They're doing some wonderful things with that. Well, the last time I was on your show, they didn't have their permit to do any testing in the lab in San Francisco, and I had mentioned they probably had to go to Davis, right, up Sacramento way to do testing, whatever it is they were doing on the Neuralink. So I was curious if something had come out that I didn't know about, because he made it sound like there was some announcement pending. He really is a really good salesperson. He really is. I'm sorry, but he is. So all I could see was all of these articles like, oh, look what he did, look what he said on the Rogan show, oh, and so they quoted him and why you want it, why you want to use it. And I thought, just great, just what we need, some positive advertising on this, which I just think is an abomination. I really, it makes me mad. Whenever I see him, I think of it.
You know, I've got like a framed photo of him on the back of the toilet door and things. Big fan of Elon Musk. But that's not to say that I support every single idea he's had. And, you know, as much as I'm a champion for the fact that I think he's an absolute genius, I've said before some of his kind of strange mannerisms I put down to him being almost savant genius. But a neural lace hooking us up to some artificial intelligence that way, putting some carbon nanotube in our minds. No, I'm not for that at all. So I certainly can't, you know, champion that cause. I can't back him up on that idea. But I tell you what, I would still love to have him on the show, but I think I would need to get Anonymous to put up some kind of special firewall so that you couldn't get to him, Nano. Because I would fear for poor Elon. I really would. You'd rip him apart. Leave my Elon alone. No, I'm only joking you. But
no, you wouldn't let me on the show, which would be fair. I of course, I would never be rude to him. I would never be rude to him. But I would ask one question. Can you pull that thing out?
That is a good question. We'll be back on the other side with NanoGirl. Don't go anywhere, folks. We'll be right back.
You must unite what has been set asunder.
We are TFR.
Truth Frequency Radio.
We are live with NanoGirl, live from Silicon Valley. And don't forget, coming up right after the Kev Baker show, when myself and Nano depart. I know I hear you all crying already, breaking hearts around the globe, but don't panic, because 3 short minutes after we finish, Lucky and Dr. Brooks Agnew will be in the house, and they will pick up where we leave off with Quantum Connections. And that's all for you right here on TFRlive.com. Truth Frequency Radio, where silence is consent. So, Nano, how are you feeling today, my dear? Have you enjoyed the show so far?
So, I was talking to Kev during the break, and I said that I had talked to a recruiter last week. We were talking, and she does a lot of recruiting for Google, and that when she talks to them, they actually use the word googly. That when they talk to candidates, they have to be googly. So I asked Kev if he was feeling googly today.
I'm feeling kind of woogly googly, to be honest. Maybe even googly moogly. I'm feeling kind of good. Or is that good?
I hope that listening audience does not mind that we've been silly heads today.
I'm going to say that to somebody in the next couple of days. Have a googly morning, sir. Yes, I hope you have a googly day.
Yes. I am googly-licious. Googly-licious. I like that.
Trust me, my experience with people at Google this week has left me far from feeling warm and googly inside.
I guess that wasn't a googly experience for you, Kev.
No, definitely not the most positive or googly experience in the world. In fact, I would call that the anti-googly experience. They de-googlified me.
You have a bad googly attitude.
That really should be a medical term, de-googlified.
It should.
Yeah.
It should, because there's a lot of people that work there.
Absolutely. Maybe that'll be like the psychological kind of condition that people get when they get unpersoned from the internet.
No, you're Google-fied. You know what? Like you're Google-fied. You're just like you've gone too far.
You've just gone too far. Take 30 days in our googly prison.
I've been Google-fied. You were Google-fied.
I like Regla.
That's what happened to you.
I like Regla in the chat room. She's got Google-licious. I like that. I like that. Yes.
Google-licious. I like that too.
So what's happening with Google, Nano? Because, you know, Google for me, and I tell you, I urge everyone, please check out the Anthony Patch show from just Friday past there. This guy has nailed it down, and what a timeline we put together. Not only that, we showed the papers written by Sergey Brin talking about and thanking the military-industrial complex for giving them the funding for setting up this thing we're having a laugh about tonight. You know, that search engine, Do No Evil. It used to be Do No Evil. Now they just leave you feeling all warm and googly inside, Nano.
Yes, they do. Yes, they do. Well, okay, so I, prepping for the show, I was kind of looking to find some fun things. So I saw this one. Google for Android Pie. Now, I didn't know this, but when Google does some of their development, they like some of the names are like food. So the Android Pie. Google adds digital well-being controls. One of the new software headlines features is its new digital well-being controls. They are in part a response to criticism that smart devices can be addictive and disruptive to our sleep patterns. So what this does is tells you how long you've been using your device. When the limit nears, users get a warning, Kev, and when it's reached, the app's icon become grayed out to prevent it from launching. The lockout can, however, be overridden. So it'll just lock you out when you've been on your device long enough for that day. See, they do have your googly-icious personality in mind all the time.
It shows the level of control that they're trying to exert. It doesn't. I mean, I know. I mean, I've talked about how they're almost shutting people, content creators out. Not technically, because we can still upload, but we can see how the face of Google is very much changing. And, you know, it's all going to be AI driven. This is something that's really important. And I'm experiencing this. Tony's experiencing it right now. We've often said there's no empathy. You know, it has no feelings. And when you're dealing with an algorithm that's wrongly got you flagged up or rightly, you're still dealing with something very clinical. And this is the way that Google are moving. And when you've got an AI deciding that you've had too much time on your device, I mean, who are they? A device that you've paid good hard money for, rightly or wrongly, Nano, who are they to lock you out of using it? That shows you just how important they are.
They have your good. They have your. You are in their heart. They have your good. You know, the good intentions for you, right? They want to keep you in a googly place.
Yeah, this all ties in with their credit scoring, because you know if you've got a low score, you'll get less time on your device.
Probably.
That means you'll have to spend even more time, even though it's less time you get on your device, you're going to have to spend that time posting pre-approved government links. You'll have to go and write stories so that you can try and work off some of that bad point so you can get an extra hour on your phone to listen to hour 2 of Kev Baker. This is where it's going.
I know. That's why I included this today. I'm like, and Apple's doing it too. Apple is introducing its own screen time controls to iOS 12 with a similar goal, and I have an Apple. These are good measures, but there are still going to be a lot of people who don't think they have a problem, Kev, and that's why you need a device to tell you.
You know,
so there will still need to be a lot done to educate you people.
You know, I've learned a lot from Tony over the years, but, you know, he compared, you know, all of this at one point, social media. He made the comparison to almost like a drug dealer, you know, giving it away for free, hooking you in. And that's very much what we're talking about here as well, because they give you all of this. We've taken advantage of it. We've learned from the internet. We thought it's been there as a tool we can use, but unknowingly, you know, we've all become very, very connected to it. And then they pull away that supply. They take away your hit. I mean, this is weird, Nano, really weird. I'm really glad you brought this up tonight. I really am. And you've brought another couple of Google things up. You've got the duplex, stuff like that as well.
Yeah, could you just play the first minute and a half of the duplex? And
Absolutely. And for people on YouTube, before I hand back to you to set it up, you can find this. It's called Robot or Human Meet Google Duplex. Obviously, I won't be playing this on the replay of this. So, Nano, back to you.
Yeah, so the reason I picked up on this, I hadn't heard of it. I hadn't listened to it, and people got freaked out. So when they presented this at a conference, people were mad because they couldn't tell the difference between a human and this voice that they have. And when you hear, I had chills. When I was putting the show notes together, I got goosebumps. It was so real. So if we can just do the first minute and a half, it's amazing what they've done.
Oh, Oh no, I will not be having a great day listening to that, NanoGirl. I mean, there was me the other night in a text chat with something. I say something at Google, and that's one thing. But to have a conversation like that, and like I said, I mean, I listened to this before. It's that little kind of It's just so human-like.
Well, he said they spent a long time getting the voice inflection to have it say something like that. Yeah. I mean, it was, and like I said, people were upset that they couldn't tell the difference. And again, Google says it will take steps to ensure that us humans are not fooled when they get called by software bots that can convincingly mimic the human voice. Well, could you, I'm telling you, I could not tell the difference.
No, that's why I said when I covered this before, I said, if I wasn't to tell people what this was, you would just think that was a really boring conversation between somebody at a hair salon and somebody booking a haircut. But what's the point? And the point is, it sounds so real. That's the point, because it's not real.
No, it's not. And that's what was so weird. It was, like I said, I was sitting here listening to this thinking, oh my God. And they did a really good job of capturing. I thought it was a cross between somebody from L.A., maybe a young woman from India. It sounded like there was a little bit of an accent there. I mean, they kind of captured everyone's nuances. It was brilliant. They did. I have to say, they did a good job.
It still encourages me, and anyone looking to kill 10 minutes or so, head on over to YouTube. Yeah, see, I still promote you, YouTube. I'm not bitter or twisted, not yet. But go and look at Scottish people speaking to Alexa. Now, it's always been, it's really, really, quite telling, because over the years, text or speech-to-text programs with a Scottish accent never worked so well. You get the closed captions and things on my videos, never worked so well. And there's something about our twang. No matter how many people email to say, I couldn't care what you talk about, Kev, it's the accent. And I literally get emails like that. Well, for whatever reason, the AI just doesn't like it. And there's a comical video that Melissa Dykes sent me one time, and it was over on Facebook as well. And it's a woman having an argument with Alexa. And Alexa just can't make out what this woman's saying. She's got a broad Scottish accent, and she ends up fighting with it, Nano. And it's hilarious. And the reason I bring that up is, let that be encouraging, folks. The Roman Empire, it collapsed when it took one look at Scotland. It didn't come any further. And if this is anything to go by, the AI is going to take one look at Scotland and go, no, it's all right. We'll leave you as a safe haven. You people are nuts in there.
I think you're lucky. I mean, if they can't understand you and they're going to leave you, and maybe that's why they did it. You're living in a smart city, is that they could pick up your accent first, The rest of us just...
I mean, I'm up in the north of Scotland. I find this quite funny, but even including the whole of England, they say that the Inverness area is actually the most precise Queen's English in the UK. Now, that means you speak the closest form to, like, given English. And yet, with whatever happens with our accent, it just sends the AI and the Alexas all wrong. I find it hilarious. I really, really do.
It's almost like protection against infection.
Yeah, man. Yeah, that's what it is. Jimmy Jean says there's some word magic going on. And words are magical spells. He says there's some word magic going on. But you've got more here on robots. What on earth are you showing me?
Okay, so if you can put that in. So I was looking for fun robots. San Francisco has bartenders, and they've got hamburger making robots, but those aren't so cute. So I found this adorable robot, and so for people who are listening later, it's a robot with a McDonald's jacket on and hanging out of the drive-up window with the McDonald's bag. And what occurred to me when I was finding the funny ones, I got to get a couple others. This one too, where this robot is making burgers. Anyway, the thing that occurs to me every single time is the faces and eyes on all the robots. Like, they make sure they have faces, arms, eyes, right? They always try to make them at least look somewhat human, so
It's
we
to
can
stop
relate to
Johnny
them.
whistles. It's to stop Johnny from automatically unloading the pump action into them. That's what it is. They want Johnny to think it might be a little bit more human than it is. And by the way, Johnny Whistles made a point of messaging me today to make sure I asked for you and passed on his best wishes to you on air now.
Oh,
And this is the kind of stuff where Johnny really would have been pulling the gun out, wouldn't he?
he would have been pulling the gun out. I think he would have been pulling it out after we got done doing the, the little interview with making the appointment for the hair.
Yeah, so I mean, I don't really get to speak to Johnny too much these days, but he was very, very keen, Nano. Like me, he remembers all the early shows and things we done. So yeah, he was asking for you. But just when you showed me that picture there, it just it threw me back to the times of whistles and things like this. There you go, Nano. There you go. He gave me a shot of it today. He knew you were coming, so he left me a shot of it.
I love it. Yeah, those were really super fun times. Those were really fun. Oh my gosh. And we crammed all of this in an hour.
I know. Have we actually managed to fit all of it in though?
Most of the time, but no, yeah, you're right. I usually would have leftovers, but that's very true. But I threw a couple more in because I couldn't stop laughing. So there we have Carl the bartender, and then we have Eye Candy. I kid you not. Eye Candy the bartender. So I got to put her, it, they, them.
I will put them in the chat room.
And they all have faces. They all have eyes. So obviously the bartenders make drinks, and like I said, we have hamburgers now in San Francisco, Zoom Pizza.
These are
now we've got the store.
You see, these aren't the robots that people are going to fall in love with, Nano.
No, because there's only half a body, because they've got the hands and the face, and the rest of it's just. Yeah, I know. We're hoping for the best on that. But
I'm just trying to get so I can share them in the chat room.
Okay, yeah. It's these kind of robots that I think are cute. And then the last robot that I'll throw out here, this got re-released. So they brought, is it AIBO? It's a little puppy one. Let me see if I can get that one. It was just cute. So it's $2,000, I think it's $2,900. It's available. It's going to be available to buy soon. And here it is, AIBO. Let me throw it in the.
I'll tell you what though, right? When it gets to last orders and you've got that one that's like the bartender, nobody's going to argue with that when it says you've had enough to drink and it's time to go home. It looks like the Terminator, the T-2000 serving you a pint. You're not going to argue with that. No. Well,
first of all, it just won't serve you. It won't serve you, right? Because if it's got AI on it, and it's my question is it going to know when you're drunk?
Oh, you know it will. It'll be trained for facial recognition. It'll notice muscles twitching in your earlobe. That'll tell you it's drunk, and you'll get a 30-day ban from buying yourself a beer.
That's right. You'll get a 30-day ban. You can't go to that bar.
Yeah. You'll have to sit outside.
Everybody knows your face, right?
Yeah, you have to look in the window at all the like popular people who do share the right posts and don't drink too much.
Oh, jeez. So the last one here, the last robot is AIBO, and this puppy was out in 2007, and they put it to bed because it didn't do enough stuff. So they brought it back out. It's $2,900. And so this is going to fall, of course, under the companion segments, right? This is, and I guess you can pet it. It picks up its bone. It pretends to pee. It has this little gesture.
I get when you build robots to do things that we're not that great at, but as far as I know, puppies pretty much do what they say on the tin. They've not failed at being as companions, and there's plenty of puppies in the world. What do we need this robotic puppy for, Nano?
If you don't, especially it's $2,900. Evidently, it comes with like technology where you can update the software. So I guess you get free updates. And if you don't want a puppy that's pooping and that you have to feed, and you just want a little companion robot, it doesn't do very much. What was it? His last comments were, I got that because they were cute. He said, we're inclined to treat electronic media as living beings. When it came time to switch off my test RoboPup and send it back to Sony, Ibo didn't plead or pal, but I felt sad nonetheless. That was
Ibo put on the sad eyes. Ibo would have me. After all of my criticism, I would spend a week with Ibo, and I'd be crying when they took it back to the lab.
Well, the guy that did this article, he had a real puppy on his porch along with Ibo. And so he kept comparing the two of them. And, well, I mean, who doesn't want a real puppy? Right? I mean, everybody wants a real puppy. What's the point? I agree with you.
Somebody really cold, like some kind of serial killer would have a digital puppy. One that they don't have to feed. It's somebody without a heart. I always say you need to watch people that don't like animals. There's something going on there. But people that have robotic animals, that's another kind of page in the psychology book altogether.
Well, yeah, I guess. What if you live in an apartment? I don't think it's personally. I don't think it's where it needs to be. We are kind of past phase 1, right? We're now in phase 2 and 3.
Nano, some of this stuff. We've set up base camp right in the middle of the uncanny valley.
Yes.
That's where we are.
That's where we are. That's exactly where we are. And some of the stuff that you and I are talking about, we've talked about before in a different iteration, right? We did, right? So now we're on phase 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever. And so we're kind of watching it grow. We're watching it change and get updated and do more things. All of it.
It's an entire new species technology, and it might sound a bit weird, but I'm certainly borrowing on ideas of people that are far more intelligent than me, and some call it the technium, and it is. I first came across this in Dan Brown's book, of all places, but as always, it led me to go and research what this technium was, and it's a real thing. And when you look at all of the different branches of robotics and technology, Nano, it really is. I mean, it's an entirely new species of entity.
And that's where I was talking earlier, that we are going to be asking different questions, thinking differently, responding hopefully differently. We have to get out of our I hate to use the word box, but we have to get out of, and we have to create new words, new vocabulary, and new ways to ask questions, because if I go back to my analogy about the watch and the clock, I think when we get down to defining what time really is, we may create different names for the mechanical device that is actually something we use to agree that that's going to be a time device. That's when we'll meet with each other.
I've heard it said before, that, and it's a joke, it's obviously not real, but I like it. If aliens turn up here, they're going to absolutely double over laughing at this thing that we call time, because it's something that we ourselves have probably entirely constructed. But like you say, more for kind of locations and events and things like that. But in reality, it's just a man-made construct, perhaps.
It is. And I think we're missing opportunities to have something at our fingertips we can use differently. But we just don't have we don't have the right questions.
No, you're right there. And we're almost out of time, Nano.
Oh my God, how'd that happen? It went fast.
Because
Are you cheered up?
Oh, I am. Thank you. I am. As the week goes on, my morale is slowly picking up, and I'll be back. That. Doubly determined. Like I say, the AI doesn't like us here because we just get up and we bounce back and go on. But I love it when you make time to come on the show. And thank you for sharing that story tonight, especially with D-Wave. It just goes to add to the entangled kind of theme that runs throughout me, you, the show here, Freaky Friday, Tony, TFR, the audience, everyone. We are all connected, Nano. And I know that's why the audience love it when we reconnect and get back together again. So thank you.
This has been fun. This was great. I loved it. And thank you for helping me get grounded for the big meeting I had over there at the D-Wave.
Absolutely. And of course, you know, I will be twisting Nano's arm to get Eric on the show. I'm only joking, but no. It's good to know. It's good to know that my judgment of that cat seems to be accurate. An absolute genius. Yeah. How could anyone, you know, that's behind the creation of the D-Wave or any other quantum computer be regarded as anything less of a genius, despite all of the negative stuff out there? So I've had a great time tonight. Nano sounds like she's had a great time. But most of all, most importantly, have you had a great time? Because it's all about you. And don't forget, coming up after the break, it continues to be about you with Lucky and Dr. Brooks Agnew as they continue the live radio right here on your number one network, Truth Frequency Radio, www.tfrlive.com, where you will always hear me live, free, right here every night. Wherever you are, make it TFR.
Night, y'all.